Hi and welcome to Sura Images. We are all about authentic African imagery. And today, I'll start by asking you this. Have you ever asked yourself or asked someone this? Did you find one? And if you did, were you happy with what you found? This is a question I was once asked by a client. And her asking me this question, it just inspired me to start what we have today, which is Sura Images. So I'll take you through a little bit of what is stock photography is all about, and as a photographer, why you should consider Sura Images as your stock photography agency. But now in general also, what we need to check is African stock photography in terms of market value, it's very huge. And its potential growth and demand is just increasing day by day. But what we need to ask ourselves is, has this need or this demand of African stock photography been fulfilled? And if it has the creators of this content been compensated fairly? That in itself, it's what sets foundation for us to start Sura Images. Because we ask ourselves this: how best can we create good value for both parties? And both parties here being the buyer who's looking for quality images, and also the creator of this content. How best can we compensate them in terms of royalties? So for that to happen, we deliberately decided for our business model to be successful, first, we have to give the contributor the power and the control of their work by giving them freedom to price their work. Unlike other agencies, so for us, we don't dictate the market price as like other websites out there. So what we do is we give them the freedom to put a price on their work. And secondly, we by giving the contributors the lion's share of these royalties. So which in terms of details, we'll be discussing that later on. But now what I'll take you through is just a few things concerning stock photography. And by the way, it's a keynote I'll share with you, of which I was supposed to make this keynote presentation in one of the photography workshop, which didn't happen because of COVID, as we all know. And bear with me because I'll be looking at the screen most of the time, of which I'll start by showing you what is stock photography. I'm double sure majority of you know that, but either way I'll show you what to shoot for stock photography, what sells in stock photography, types of content in stock photography, types of licenses, the pros and cons in stock photography, and lastly, why should you consider Sura Images? Let's start. What is stock photography? Like I said, majority of you knows this answer, but for the sake of those who don't, so let me just explain. Stock photography as a business, it's the business of selling images or supplying photos or videos licensed for specific uses on an online platform, and mostly on behalf of the photographer, videographer, or the artist, depending on what content they are producing. So, and that squarely falls under Sura Images. Sura Images is the stock photography agency where we normally kind of license this content for specific uses on behalf of our contributors. So the other thing is what to shoot for stock photography. It's a question I think I've been asked by a couple of photographers. And stock photography, see it this way: stock photography, it's a marketplace whereby every seller can come with their own produce and own product, and any buyer can come in and choose whatever they want to buy. So the same case applies to stock photography. So as a content creator or as a photographer, you can shoot wildlife, you can shoot cityscape, you can shoot landscapes or landmarks, you can shoot people, that is lifestyle. So the day-to-day kind of living. If you're a travel photographer, you can shoot travel content, agriculture, infrastructure, African cuisine, which is also in high demand, culture, technology, and so many other categories you can choose. And depending on your interests or your passion or the things you would like to create, you can choose a category you're good at or you want to pursue, and with that you just create content for stock photography. The other thing is, what sells in stock? It's a very good question. It's something that normally comes up when I'm also interacting with photographers, because in photographers' mind, all they want to know is which content they can create and make something out of it, which is it's not bad to get to know. But in stock, all I can say is anything can sell and should sell in stock photography, because I normally have this notion of whatever image you have or whatever video clip you have, you might think it's not good enough, you might think it's cliche, it's not nice, but that content you're having, whether it's in your hard drive or it's somewhere, there's someone else who is looking for that content. So in a way, in stock, anything can sell. But to show what's more in demand or what is more lucrative or what sells most, we can define that, yes, but in some situation, it also depends with the current situation. I'll give an example of what we are going through, this pandemic. If you can create content that is COVID driven, that content as we speak is on demand, because everyone is wanting to communicate all about COVID. They want to show things concerning COVID and this pandemic. So in that, right now it's in demand. But in a long term, the things that I've noticed that tend to sell most is any imagery or any content that involves people. Meaning, these are the content that maybe you're shooting people, like example of lifestyle. People tend to look for images with people because the people they are communicating to, they also associate things with what they are seeing. And if you see a person, you tend to associate more with people, unlike other things, as much as even the rest of the things do sell and do communicate. But all in all, as you can see on this page, anything can sell here, whether it's landscapes, whether it's cityscape, whether it's animals, or whether it's now people doing day-to-day activity. All those sort of content can sell. Cool. Types of content in stock photography. There are only two types of content in stock photography, and that is creative or editorial. And whether the content is images or videos or even illustrations and even music, all those content, they fall under these two categories or two types of content. And creative content, it's the kind of content that can be used both for commercial use, either for advertising a product or service, and can also be used for editorial purposes. But for editorial is that kind of content that can only be used for editorial purposes only. So you may ask, what makes the content creative or editorial? A couple of things, but the main thing is when the creative or when the photographer is creating this content, and especially if he's creating bearing in mind that this content gonna be for commercial usage, and if the content is making, either you're shooting people or you're shooting model or you're shooting someone's property, all you have to do is make sure that those people, either they're appearing in the picture or their property is appearing in the picture, they have to give you permission to use that picture or to use these images for commercial usage. And for them to give you that permission or to give that consent, they have to sign a document called release form. And the release form, it's either a model release form or property release form. So once you create that and you submit to us, like now to Sura Images, all we do to check is this content has people in it, and is it accompanied by a release form. If it's accompanied with a release form, then automatic that content, we approve it as editorial. But if this content doesn't have this document, so we only approve it as editorial. And I will give you an example here, whereby we'll show you when the content is editorial and when the content is creative. And this is the things as a buyer you have to check when you're buying content. If you're buying content for creative use, so if you're coming to an example like in Sura Images and you have found this picture here, if you're happy with the picture and you want to use it for commercial purposes, all you need to do is to check this information here. We call it release information. If this release information is available with Sura Images, that shows yes, that model or that person in the picture has given consent that their image can be used for commercial purposes. And once that content is available with Sura Images, that now kind of becomes, the content now automatically becomes a creative image. If, for example, another image here, if a photographer submits this kind of content but doesn't avail the release information about that model, whereby if it doesn't, we approve it as no information provided. And if there's no information concerning the release information provided, automatic that image becomes an editorial image, or automatic becomes an editorial content. But also as well, there are some couple of images here, like this image. This image is the baobabs in Madagascar. This, if you check here, has no release information, because such image doesn't require release information because there's no people, it's not someone's property. So for that, once we see this, it's available and it can be used for commercial purposes, then that one we approve it as a creative content. Okay, and I'll give you an example here why the document or this release information it's very important. It's because I came across a case here which is very, very interesting, and I've shared some links on the description so you can have a read on it. There's this woman in America who sued this restaurant for $2.2 billion for using her photo without a release. That shows you the consequences of using an editorial content for commercial purposes. So a case in point is this story, whereby it's a very interesting story. I would encourage you guys to read. At least you see the repercussions you can have when you use editorial content for commercial usage. And to me, 2.2 billion, that's a lot of money. And I wish I know the outcome of this, or I would like to know the verdict of this case, because it sounds to be very, very interesting. And if any of you knows about the verdict, please share on the comment. I would like to know. And with that, I think it becomes now a concern. Whenever you are creating content and you intend that this content can be used for commercial purposes, make sure that if it has people in it, make sure that those people sign a release form, and that release form is also available in our website, whereby if you want a copy, just download and you have a copy of it. Next is what we call types of licenses. There are mainly a couple of licenses, but what's known is what we call a standard license. And under standard license, that's where you find that we have royalty-free licenses, rights managed licenses, rights ready licenses, and all these they differ in terms of giving the rights. Like for royalty-free, the rights you have, it's just in terms of solely based on the file size. If you want a large file, if you want a small file, or if you want a medium file. And in some cases, there are some sites that offer even extra large files. So if you want that, that's a royalty free, meaning it can be used for multi-purposes, for different mediums, And the restrictions here is you cannot duplicate, or you cannot give out that content to someone else, or you cannot resell that content to someone else. The same case with right managed. Right managed it's a bit restrictive, because all you need to do is define your intentions to use this image. You have to define, I'm intending to use it in advertising, and under advertising, I'm intending to use it maybe in billboards, in print, or in digital. And for what duration are you intending to use this image? Is it like within, you're doing a campaign for 3 months, 6 months, a year? And also you have to define to which regions are you distributing this content. So all those, so you have to define for you to be granted usage of that content. Right ready, it's the same as right managed, but right ready, it's for videos, the same. Then there's another license called exclusive license. As the word suggests, this license is granted for exclusivity, and exclusivity in the sense of it can be it can be a royalty free, it can be right managed, it can be right ready. But if you need exclusivity for those licenses, then you have to incur an extra cost for this exclusivity. And this exclusivity means you are the only person who will be using this content for that period you specify. If you will need the exclusivity rights for this image for like 6 months, once you specify that you intend to use this content for 6 months and you need this exclusivity, so that image will be unavailable for the next 6 months to anyone else who need that image. But once your duration expires, now that content becomes available for everyone once again. So all those are the kind of types of licenses we do have. Advantages and disadvantages of stock photography. Yes, like anything else, it has its pros and cons. And to the photographer, advantages of stock photography, it's passive income. You generate income as you do other things. You learn on the job. This means you acquire the skill as you learn, as you make money, or as you create all this content. So it incurs zero budget or little expenses, because you don't want, it's not one of those requirement that you have to have this number of experience, you have to have this number of gadgets to get this job. For stock, as long as you can compose or you can create good content, that's all that matters. You don't need a bigger budget, or you don't need mostly zero budget to start creating content for stock. Quick access. When your content is in one of stock photography sites like Sura Images, it gives you an advantage of quick access. People can access your content through that platform. Then we goes to the disadvantages. The disadvantages is time consuming, just like any other photography gig. This one is also time consuming, because once you shoot, you edit your pictures, then you have to start keywording them, profiling the pictures. That kind of take time. The other disadvantage is low and slow returns. Yes, you're not guaranteed a lump sum money that once you have this, we're gonna pay you this a lot of money. No, it's only that once you submit your content to any of the stock photography sites, the returns, they are kind of slower and low, but in a long term, you find that you've generated quite good money. And the other disadvantage is no guarantee for sale. Yes, we encourage you to create content, yes, to submit to like Sura Images, but there is no guarantee that your sale will be made. But the bottom line is, somehow you'll make money out of the content, but it's not that automatic. Once you upload this image, you're gonna make sale. No, but over time, you'll start making money. To the buyer, the advantage with stock photography is it's affordable. As well, it's quick access. You get a variety of content to choose from, and the content is quality. That's another advantage. The disadvantages is license restriction. Like I said before, for a buyer, once you buy, whether it's royalty free, whether it's right managed, or whether this is exclusive rights, the restrictions are you cannot distribute that content to other people. You cannot resell that content to other people. And you cannot use that content in any other way, unlike what you had defined when you are buying the content. The other thing is non-exclusive. So for majority of other stock websites, they don't offer exclusivity licenses. But like I have shown you for our example, like for Sura images, we normally have exclusivity in case you need an exclusive license. We do offer that. Another disadvantage is common and generic. This is something that has been said before, that stock photography, they are common and they are generic to some extent, yes, but with involving photographers and advising them in terms of the kind of content and the creativity you can input when you're creating this content, is to make sure that whichever subject, even if it's a common subject or it's a subject that has been short and the content is available with so many people, you can find a very creative way of showing that subject, but in a very different perspective. And with that, you kill this analogy of it's generic and it's common. And what I'll show you here is it's an example of what I know advantages of stock photography, and also the advantages of having a release form for your content in case you plan to use it for commercial use. This example is my personal experience, whereby this image on the left is an image I had proposed to a client to do the job they wanted to do with the image, and they loved the image, and actually they said, how much does it cost? So I had to get back to this friend of mine, the photographer called Anthony, and Anthony gave me the quote, which they're okay with it, but the issue is this model hadn't signed a release form. And getting back to Anthony, the model said he is only available after 4 days, of which client couldn't wait for 4 days to have this image. So what client said is, give me an alternative. So an alternative was to go back to iStock, look for another image as an alternative. Yes, I couldn't find an African with colored beard on iStock. So the only alternative I could get, it's this colorful kind of a picture. But the reason why I'm giving this example is this advantages of quick access. You see, if this content was in a stock photography site like Sura Images, if Anthony was submitting to us, we could have made sure that this model has signed a release form, and that release form is available with us. Whenever now it's available for commercial usage, so automatic qualifies for that. But since it didn't have, then we couldn't use that image. And as well, the client couldn't wait for 4 days to access the image or to have the rights to use the image. So that shows you the advantages of having your content on stock photography, and also the advantages of having a content that is for commercial usage, but it's accompanied with release forms, if indeed it has people on it. Why Sura Images? This is one of those features I'll take you through to see our unique features, and as a photographer or as a contributor, these are the kind of things you should consider when you're looking for a stock photography agency. And to start with, it's what we call contributor revenue. Our contributors receive 60% commission on every sale they make, which, if you compare with the industry standard, is way much higher than what majority of our competitors do give. And it's with this we believe that giving our contributors this lion's share of the royalties, it's one of those factors to our success. And we are proud and happy about this. The other thing is pricing your own work. As a contributor, you are the person who have created this content. You are the guy who have invested time, money, and other resources to create this content. So it's good even to give them a chance to put a price tag on their work, because considering they have spent money, they have invested time and other resources to create this work, so it's best for them to put a price tag on the work. But what we did, so we created this system in a way that we didn't want even them, as much as we can give them freedom to price, we didn't want them to overprice, which might scare now the buyer, and also we didn't want to underprice, which they might be undervaluing themselves. So we gave a range whereby the photographer or the contributor can play around with the price within that range. And as you can see, it's just a matter of setting the price, and we have kind of given you a range of where you should be pricing within $150 and not less than $25. Model notification. I think this is one of those features we believe you can only find it on Sura Images. And I'll give you the reason for this, because when we started creating this platform, we knew and we thought, when a local photographer is creating content for stock photography, and more so if they are creating content that is commercial viable, and majority of this commercial viable content is things to do with people, is shooting models, is shooting lifestyle, whereby you're involving people. And for that to happen, it's something we call stock photography modeling. So meaning you have to look for models, and you have to create content with them, and you have to pay them. But this is something we knew. The local photographer, majority of local photographers might not spend money, and even if they do have the money, they might not spend money creating such content to submit for stock photography. Yes, when they are creating their own personal work, maybe some can spend, and if they don't have the money, then they might not be able to create this kind of content. But Sura Images, we brought this feature whereby the photographer and the model, they can get into an agreement that they create this content, but once they submit it to Sura Images, what will happen is when this content is purchased, the model will get a notification that this picture or this content you appear in has been bought at this much, and now you can contact your photographer for payment. And I think with that, it now opens door for models, for photographers or content creators now to come together and create this commercial viable content without spending, or with little or zero expense, if I can put it that way. And we felt that is something that it's quite unique, and it gives us an advantage, whereby now it gives even the content creators, these models, to create content that can make commercial sense. The other thing is monitoring your finances. This is quite direct. I'm sure even other sites have this, but ours is a bit broad, because to monitor your finances, and this happens for both photographers and also the models, because once the photographer creates a model account, this model now will have access to a portal whereby they can also monitor their sales. They can see which images have been sold, which images the contributor has uploaded, and with what releases. So such becomes a very engaging kind of a platform. So monitoring your finances, you can monitor by the file ID. If you want to know how much sale you have made based on this one image, all you do is you filter with a file ID. You can also see the file sales statement monthly. You can filter your sales by the licenses. If you have some videos that is rights ready or royalty free videos or royalty free images, you can filter with that. And also you can filter by dates. So if you want to know how much you have made today, you just filter by date. Or you want to know how much you have made within the last 10 days, you filter within the last 10 days, and you kind of display the number of sales you have made within those days. The other advantage also is FTP upload. So normally when you're shooting, you might have so many images to upload, and sometimes with the internet it can be a bit maybe slow, whichever internet you're using. But with FTP, this is a feature we added in our platform whereby it gives you an advantage. You can upload all at once, even if there are videos also, and it gives you the features. And also we do recommend the type of FTP software to use, which normally it's recommended and it's easier to use. All this you'll find once you register as a contributor. The other thing is quotations for clients. This is now for a buyer. If you're buying content from Sura Images, and if you're buying on behalf of a client, rather than take a screenshot of this is the image and this is how much it's gonna cost, you can send me the money, or I can bill you for this, or you can pay. What we did is create this part or this platform whereby you can send a quotation to client. Then from there, it comes as a Sura Images quotation, but it shows you the number of images you had selected, and it shows the client these are the kind of costs it's gonna cost you. So they can decide to buy on their end, or they can tell you to buy those images or that content on their behalf. And more or less that's about it. So it's small features, but it means a lot, and it's to us, we believe with those kind of features we are unique in terms of the service we are giving, and also in terms of the advantage we are giving to the photographers or the contributors. It gives us an upper hand to get this content from the photographers, and also it's a benefit to the photographers as well. Thanks so much for watching this, and I'm sure that there'll be many coming. And don't forget to subscribe. Since it's our first video, please subscribe. Thank you so much.